So, so Sangram and I actually are good friends, and one of the things we talk about a lot is marketing, and the other thing we talk a lot about is marriage, and and this is sort of an extension of what he was talking about in some respects. So, gears and grease, right? Doesn't sound very marital or very marketing, right? But actually, if you think about it, you can't really have one without the other, right? If you have an engine and no oil in it, it burns up, right? If you just have oil and no engine, it's just a big puddle on the ground, right? And it doesn't create any value. This right here, actually, this presentation was first created for South by. I ended up kind of through a quirk of fate being able to be the marketing keynote this past March for South by. And so that's what this is. So we're gonna talk about two things. You know, one is we call it performance marketing. The other we call it brand, right, or CX. And we have kind of, this is an age-old debate, right, between what's the relationship between the two, which one is more important, all this kind of stuff. And this is all about the fact that this is a false choice. Now, what separates what I'm about to say from maybe what I would have said 5 years ago on this is that this isn't actually, everything I'm going to show you is rooted in a lot of analytics. So that's what the company that I am the CEO of, it's called Proof Analytics, parent company is Proofmark. That's what we do. We work with CFOs and heads of sales and CMOs and any other stakeholders, and we are an analytics bridge that brings all of their stuff together, right, and shows them their relative contribution and relationship. You can think of it as attribution if you want to, but it's not modeled, it's actually computed. So what I'm going to show you here is the basis of this, right? So on one hand, we have performance marketing, right? And that's what's been really hot for about the past 5 to 7 years, probably because a lot of marketers saw it as their first real opportunity to prove anything about the value of what they do. If we can just track all the touch points, if we can do all that stuff, ABM clearly is the more mature iteration of that, then we are going to be able to show our value on the financial statement. Brand, on the other hand, is historically, particularly by CEOs and CFOs, seen as something that is very ethereal, right? Kind of know that it's important, know that I need it, right? And if we're going to register it anywhere, it's going to be kind of in the category of goodwill on the balance sheet. But if you talk to a CFO saying, hey, it's cool that it's an asset and everything, but how do I mobilize this so that it actually has an impact on my financial statement? Revenue, margin, cash flow. So this is some of the other things that typically, right, is part of the CW around this topic, right? Performance marketing, top of the funnel set of investments and impacts. It's a mechanism that facilitates the customer decision journey, all the way through, right? And it tends to kind of focus up here, if only because for a lot of B2B marketers, we're talking about lead gen and top of the funnel being their primary focus. Brand is seen as more bottom of the funnel, which actually it is in many companies, but it is misattributed towards awareness and loyalty, right? Particularly loyalty in the bottom part of the funnel, as opposed to what it really does. So this is the machine, this is the grease, gears and grease. This is a marriage, right? Just like the marriage between a CMO and a CFO and everyone else, right? You could almost think of Right now, in many organizations we work with, there's a bad marriage between the CMO and the CFO, and sales guys and everybody else, those are the kids, right? And it's not pretty. It's not pretty. So what we're trying to do, actually, and what we do for a lot of these clients, is we show them why they actually have a good marriage, why the virtues in the other side, in their mate, are unappreciated because they're unseen, unproven, unacknowledged. And as soon as you drag them out into the light, meaning all the virtues and wonderful things that marketers do, right? All of a sudden, CFOs start saying, wow, I'm actually married. I have a really hot spouse, right? So better understanding of this, that performance marketing is a buying mechanism, okay, that yields revenue, margin, and cash flow. And by the way, if you're only looking at this in terms of top line revenue, you are missing most of your impact. Several other presentations, for example, have mentioned deal velocity, average deal velocity. That is not just correlated, that is causal to cash flow from revenue. If you are moving more of your deals, or if your average deal velocity is getting faster and faster, guess what? That means you're invoicing faster, you're collecting faster, and therefore, right, you're getting more money faster. This is actually also the leading indicator on everything else up the funnel. So the correlations, for example, company to company between stuff at the end, which would be deal velocity and cash flow, to more revenue and more deals at the top of the funnel, that type of thing, right? We're talking about a very strong relationship here. So, vendor's perspective. So this is also part of the marriage here. You know, the marriage analogy is very extensible here. So now I'm kind of moving to the vendor-customer marriage that exists. We tend to think of awareness, consideration, preference, purchase, and there are other variations to this, okay, that we've all heard, as kind of our definition of the way it's supposed to be, the way it operates. But it's actually a vendor-centric perspective of what we think is important to customers, what we think they're doing. It's actually this through a glass darkly kind of extrapolation of what's really happening. This is actually what's really happening. So they are in the midst of this whirlwind, right? It is kind of generally funnel shaped, but, you know, all these different actions that are going on, different touch points, and this is all a giant swirl and stuff is bouncing off one another inside of this right here. But psychographically, and this is the other thing that Sangram said that I thought was so important that I want to highlight from his talk, is that focusing on what doesn't change and what hasn't changed is so key. Human nature has not changed. What human beings need, particularly when they are facing a high cost, high risk buy decision, which is generally but not always characteristic of B2B, it's awareness, confidence, and trust. And just so you know, I didn't come up with this, right? About 15 years ago, 3 professors at Princeton University started doing research in customer decision psychographics. They're the first ones who codified this. Now it's become quite the, there's a lot of work being done around the world in different universities on this. But awareness, confidence, and trust is still a mainstream concept within that body of endeavor. Now, if you look at this and you say to yourself, wow, that kind of sounds like the attributes of brand to me, I think that you would be right? Confidence, okay, this is the consideration of the upside. This is all the good things that can happen or not if I buy from you. Trust is, wow, I'm putting myself in your hands. Are you going to drop me in the soup, or is this going to make my career? This decision. So nirvana. And this actually goes to some of the other topics that different people have talked to here. How do you actually gain alignment? So if we think about, again, in the context of marriage, it's important to have alignment, but if it's purely personal or purely organizational, or if you're the CMO and you've cut a deal with the head of sales that because of a certain amount of touches, you get a pro rata share of revenue credit, and you get a new sales leader who doesn't agree with that, guess what? Deal's off, right? Very fragile sort of agreement. That's not real alignment. This is an example of real alignment. And there are many, right? This is not meant to be religious, okay? But at the bottom, or at the top, you have revenue, margin, and cash flow. These are business goals. There can be other business goals. So let's peel that onion. What happens? What causes that to happen? What contributes to it? Well, it's sales productivity, right? And there's 3 legs of sales productivity. There's more deals, bigger deals, and faster deals. And the relationships here are beyond correlation. No one disputes this in business. I don't care what industry you're in, right? The relationships here are hard and fast. So we started looking about 15 years ago when I was a CMO at how we could influence this. And this is when we bumped into the psychographic research on this. So what we found is a very, very strong, consistent correlation in these columns right here. Awareness to more deals to revenue, confidence, bigger deals, margin improvement, and particularly, right, off the charts, different measures of trust, faster deals, impact on cash flow. So this box right here, we got it really solid. And then we said, okay, out of all the things that we're doing across marketing and communications, and for that matter, other things, how do we optimize, not for cost, how do we optimize for impact on this customer journey right here, this psychographic journey? Paid and owned, no surprise here. Thoroughly optimized for top of the funnel. It's tough to beat it. It really is. But what we saw across software companies, aerospace companies, pharma companies, all kinds of stuff, is right here, you see a disengagement by most customers from paid and owned channels. Why? It's not because they don't like you or anything like that at all. It's because for the back half, this is all about dealing with risk, right? So this is the big difference. There is a difference. For all of the points of agreement I have on the similarities between B2C and B2B, there is one really big difference, and that is the issue of risk. Most B2C, we're talking about nominal risk, right? We're talking about $49.95 for whatever. If I don't like it, if it sucks, if it breaks, whatever, I've lost $49.95. However, if I'm going to spend $1 billion on aircraft engines over the next 8 years, that was Honeywell for me, that's big risk. That's the kind of stuff that can end your career, it can hurt your company, it can do all kinds of stuff, right? So we started saying, okay, how do we optimize for that? Well, we need to do more in independent channels. We need to do more that either is hands-off, right, or appears to be hands-off. So, at the end of the day, flip sides of the same coin, partners in a marriage, all this kind of stuff, and we're already seeing brand come back. What? In the form of CX. No one wants to utter the B word, right? Because how many times have you been in a meeting with a CFO or a CEO and they're like, if you mention the B word one more time, right? But everyone respects CX. So this is actually how this operates. So I'm going to posit this as a mission. From a marketing point of view, marketing versus sales, right? Performance marketing helps sales sell more product to more customers faster and more profitably than sales could do by itself. And that is the whole goal right there. So I really agree. Sangram said, who gets to define the value of marketing? It's the impact on sales. However, brand marketing is focused on the customer, right? You think that performance marketing is actually appreciated by your customer. It's actually not. It's considered to be kind of a price of doing business. Brand, though, helps customers buy more product faster and at a higher price than they would normally do. That's the value of the brand. And together, right, same stuff, flip sides of the coin, one team, one integrated marriage in marketing and sales. This is what you got. Thank you so much.